longest time, I kind of never really thought that I would own a Les Paul. The story went for me that I grew up listening and playing Thin Lizzy, Gary Moore, these kind of players, and obviously a lot of them are Les Paul players, all of my favourite players. At some stage when I was about 15, 16, I actually managed to play one of these in a store, and it just didn't speak to me at all. And I thought that's quite a bulky instrument, and something about it at the time just didn't seem right. And that was basically my view on Les Pauls up until a few months ago. The same day I played a PRS Custom 24, I think, and at that stage I thought, well, that is a guitar I could play. Now, cut to about a year ago, I bought that PRS DGT, and I've just sold that actually, so I'm quite glad about that. But I've already played the Les Paul more than I ever played the PRS DGT, and I had that for a year. So for me, I'm kind of wondering, what was it that kept me scared of the Les Paul for so long, and why did I not try one sooner when, you know, there are plenty of good examples of them about? And what is it about the Les Paul that actually is quite a fun thing to play? I think the first thing to say is that for me, to be gigging one of these things, I think you'd probably either have to be a rock player or a blues player or a metal player. Generally, I don't think they're necessarily the most all-purpose instruments out there. But let me know if you can think of examples that are exceptions to that. You know, people that gigged Les Pauls and played kind of jazz or soul stuff, or, you know, if you gig a Les Paul and you play a range of stuff, let me know in the comments, because I think it's interesting to see what people actually use these things for. For me, the thing that I think of most obviously with a Les Paul is either blues or like rock. But I think it's actually a little bit more of a versatile instrument than that. The thing that does hold it back slightly is not having access to some single coil sounds. I think some people do coil splits and stuff like that. I don't know whether that ends up being better or not. I think there's a real difference to the way it feels to play a Les Paul than to something like a Strat. Obviously a Strat is where I feel more comfortable. If there was kind of one word that I'd use to describe a Les Paul, it's thick. You know, thick in terms of tone, it's thick in terms of playability, and thick in terms of what's on the body. Just everything about it, I guess, except for how it feels under the arm. Under the arm, and it's like not the biggest guitar, it feels kind of small in this dimension. But thick is basically how the first word that comes to mind with it, really, and thick, sustaining, and all that stuff. And certainly, when I look at this guitar and these kinds of guitars, there's a whole bunch of iconography, and I don't know if that's part of the appeal with these things as well. For me, this might be the most iconic looking guitar out there. You know, the shape of the Strat is probably the only rival for that, but it's either a Les Paul or a Strat is what I think of as the guitar for me personally. I'm glad that I have one now. I don't know if I could ever get to the stage where I'd take this out and gig it exclusively. It's a bit of a, for me, still a process of getting to know the instrument a bit. The feeling is, but it takes a bit of time to get used to playing it again still. This has the kind of 59 shape neck, where it's a bit thicker. This is a 2002 standard Honeyburst. There are kind of Les Pauls at every price point though. I think the Epiphone inspired, I hear good things about. I might try and get one of those to review. The Sire Larry Carlton Les Paul, I really think is a great instrument. And then you could spend money on a modern standard, or if you really want to spend $4 grand and upwards or $6 grand and upwards, you could get a custom shop or a Murphy Lab. I don't know, let me know if you've got one of those and you really dig them. But basically what you get with each of them is something that looks at least pretty classic. I think that to me even might be more unique than the sound, is how it looks and feels to play a Les Paul, as well as the kind of like thick aspect. I thought I'd kind of hate a Les Paul. As it turns out, if you find the right one for you, it's a really cool thing, probably. So let me know your favourite Les Paul. Let me know your story with your Les Paul if you've got one. If you've got one that got away, maybe you have. Have you tried any of the super expensive Les Pauls and would you recommend them? But yeah, this one seems to me to be perfectly fine. It's never going to be a daily driver, but it's a nice little thing to have in the garage for the occasional times that you think, alright, I want to pretend like I'm a rock star. Should have got one sooner. Cheers.